Have you ever wondered what are some common personality attributes or traits that are typically found in a lot of people who grow up in households or families where there was not a lot of love? So I want to talk to you about what I have observed are some characteristics and traits of people who were raised in households where there was not a lot of love and support. Now, this is important for you to understand because if you're watching this, you may be one of those people who probably grew up in an unloving or unsupportive family, or you may know people. It could be your colleagues, it could be somebody that is in the distant family, it could be your spouse that has grown up in an unloving environment. Personal development is about so many things, from developing your mind, developing your outlook and attitude towards life, developing your skills, overall just becoming a better human being. And you would think that this stuff is really intuitive and simple and common sense, but it's anything but common practice. And if you look around, you'll find that majority of people don't really know how to develop themselves. An element of developing yourself personally also includes personality development. Our personalities are complex. Our personalities are formed through a complex mix of cultural factors, conditioning, the environment, the era that we grew up in, and some natural characteristics that we also carry, which are probably inherited through genetics. The first characteristic that you find in a lot of people that have grown up in unloving households is that they're rebellious. And that means that they don't just conform and comply easily. They struggle with that. And they will typically just rebel and do things differently because sometimes they're just seeking attention, they want to be different, and they don't want to be like everybody else. And you'll find that often people like that, when they're growing up, especially in their teenage years, they can be seen to be troublemakers because they just defy orders. The second quality that I have observed in people who have grown up in households where there's not a lot of love and support is that they're hypervigilant. And what that really means is that they pay attention to every little detail, because maybe when they were growing up, they didn't feel like they could just relax. They always felt like there was volatility at home, and sometimes they probably felt like they were walking on eggshells. There was no sense of certainty. There were never comfort. And so as a consequence, their brains get hardwired to become hypervigilant. They start to look at every little thing, and they can't just fully tune out. They can't fully switch off. They can't fully relax most of the time unless they're around somebody that they trust, which is very rare. The third trait that I have found in people who have grown up in households where there wasn't a lot of love and support is that they find it very difficult to trust people. You see, if your own family has let you down when you were growing up, then generally what happens is when you get older and you've already got that mindset that you can't rely on people, you do find it hard to trust people. And so generally what happens is, if you know somebody like that, you're going to find that it's going to take 2 or 3 times as long, and it's going to be 2 or 3 times as hard to gain their trust. The fourth trait that you will find often in people who have been raised in households where there was not a lot of love and support is that they're fiercely independent. As much as possible, they hate relying on people. They want to try and do everything themselves because in the past, they've already had numerous experiences where they've relied on people and they've been let down. So as a consequence, what happens is those continued disappointing experiences have hardwired them to believe that they can't really rely on anybody as much as they can rely on themselves. And so because of that, they become fiercely independent. The fifth trait that I have often observed in people like that is that they're skeptical about people. They know that people can be good, but largely they don't see people as being benevolent. Because they were let down by people close to them, they generally find that it's easier to believe that people are not benevolent. So it's a bit like seeing people as guilty before they're proven innocent. So they often carry this perception that most people, they're not going to be naturally good. And so there's this natural skepticism that they have about people, which kind of relates to their difficulty in being able to trust people. The sixth characteristic of people who have grown up in a household where there wasn't not a lot of love or support is distrust of authority. Again, it goes back to the point of being rebellious and, finding it difficult to comply and conform. But generally, they don't give the same respect that a lot of other people do to people who are in positions of authority. You find that generally they struggle to listen to teachers or parents or politicians. They don't really believe people. They believe that a lot of these people who have got to these positions may have done something wrong, because they've seen that there's an imperfect system. They've seen that, in their family, they've seen that a lot of the times people who have authority don't deserve that authority. They're not necessarily competent. They don't necessarily have that character. So they have a general distrust of authority, which makes it very difficult for them to listen to people. The seventh characteristic of people who have been raised in families or households where they didn't get a lot of love and support is they tend to be emotionally aloof, and they're very sensitive to betrayal. The moment they see signs of betrayal, they see that somebody is not being loyal to them, very quickly these people will flip and they become emotionally aloof. Because remember, they already are fiercely independent. So what happens is in order to reduce their reliance, if they're incredibly sensitive, the other person may have just innocently made some mistake, but they're generally, because they're distrustful, they become emotionally aloof the moment they identify signs of disloyalty or betrayal. And the eighth characteristic that I have observed in people who have grown up in households where there wasn't a lot of love and support is that they have an excessive need to prove themselves. Remember, a lot of these people, when they were children, they didn't get the validation, acknowledgement, and approval of the people that they looked up to and they loved. So what happens is, as they get older, they really want to prove themselves. They've kind of realized that only doing something extraordinary is going to give them validation. So unlike a lot of other people who are just happy to settle because they may have a better sense of self-esteem, people who have not had a lot of love and support in their childhood tend to kind of have this excessive need to prove themselves. Not necessarily that because they're seeking validation, it's just that because their self-esteem is tied to hyper-achievement. So they really want to perform, they want to achieve, because they believe that without a lot of achievement and performance, that their intrinsic worth is lacking. I'd love to know from you if you have identified any of these characteristics within yourself, or do you know people that exhibit these characteristics? The fact is that, our experiences shape us. And a lot of the times, these could be considered to be traumatic experiences that shape our personalities as well. Now, some people may say, these are things that require psychotherapy, or, you need to go and see somebody. But I'd like to know from you, do you think that all of these qualities are necessarily negative, or do you see that there may be some positive implications of these qualities as well? Again, make sure that if you are liking my content, you're enjoying my content, make sure that you do subscribe to my channel. And also check out our Become Powerful University, where we are providing mentorship, support, and insights, principles, and strategies to people who want to become powerful in their lives and their careers. Thanks for watching.